So there is metaphysical superficiality, not just physical superficiality. And metaphysical superficiality, in some ways, is worse because you have to be conscious of it in a sort of controlled um, way. So, in other words, you're in control of what traits of personality that you'll accept into your life. You're in control of that. What you're not in control of, um, comparatively, is what physics you're attracted to. So what body um, proportions, um, etc. Metaphysical superficiality, nobody talks about it, and nobody's really labeled it as such, because I think that it's hard to label anything metaphysical that sort of paints a very negative picture about one's judging faculties. So people aren't judging when they have bodily reactions to random strangers. They aren't. That's not a judgment. That's it's not conscious in the same way that saying if you're a lady, I like that other lady's handbag or not, or that handbag sucks, whatever. It's not the same kind of judgment. So in a lot of ways, it's not even a conscious verdict if the tower, so to speak, is erected and Rapunzel lets down her hair. Right? A that's not a conscious verdict. It's not happening because there's any maliciousness, but the reaction to that, both from the object and the subject, in connection with that event, the reaction to that makes it seem in your mind that you are guilty of something, right? If you don't, want to have sex with, the elephant man, if you're a woman, you feel guilty about that, and at the same time, you completely grasp logically why no one ever would want to have sex with the elephant man. If we reverse genders and you're a man, you can conceive easily in a logical way why you and really nobody, or everybody else, wouldn't want to have sex with a woman, let's say, who had a face that was shaped like a actual horse. Like you could conceive, like, nobody in their right mind, or with what you could call a mind in a generally applicable sense, would have sex with horse face. You can rationalize that. You can find some logic that backs that up, but you still feel guilty because you see horseface, or you see elephant man, depending on your sex, and you're not into them, and there's an expectation to be welcoming to everybody, to have grace for everybody, to have them not feel bad around you. There is, in most people, a a part of them that in some way wants to do the unexpected, just so that everybody gets along, just so the boat isn't rocked. But anyway, metaphysical shallowness, or metaphysical superficiality, whatever you want to call it. You're targeting traits of a person's personality, and you're saying, this is an ugly trait, or this is an attractive trait. And the point that I want to make in this video is really that with a lot of traits, with a lot of personality traits, you really don't know if you like them or not, and you're judging them based primarily on, um, other opinions, and whether they be other people's rationalizations that you learned when you were a child, or whether they be other people's sentiments that you learned when you were a child that said um, X, Y, or Z was a bad trait to have. A lot of people attach traits to, or not traits, but a lot of people attach actions um, to certain disorders of a mental nature that really are not, those actions are really not connected, um, and they're really not related in a general sense. It's really just, it seems that way, but it's really just particular to your subjective experience of evaluations throughout the course of your life. So everybody, is pretty subjective about, a whole plethora of actions, or, let's say, it could be anything. It could be like, you had a bad experience with one, uh, you know, 20-something nurse, tending to your wound, your war wound, and you immediately started thinking, well, nurses, to be any good, they have to be older, and you don't catch that there's some ageism going on in there, but the point is, right, you are taking that bad experience, and you're saying that, well, this is the conditionality of that bad experience, therefore that translates to, that a bad experience, a bad result, a bad aftermath will follow that, particular conditionality, when that's not always the case. And it could just be, that you brought something to that, to that situation yourself that sort of facilitated the negative experience. And also, it could just be that something, out of left field, like, say, for instance, like an earthquake, or, a shooting, or whatever, like, name your experience. You know, it could just be that something out of left field happened, and, people were not really themselves fully in a lucid manner on that day you had that negative experience. It could be a bunch of different things, but the point is, prejudice is formed, superficiality is formed in a metaphysical way. So you end up having, when you get to, the age of 18 and onwards, you end up having a shitload of metaphysically superficial codex through which to observe the world, and qualify people, and tick and X cross, so and so out, right? You have a hell of a lot of what people might call baggage, speaking of it generally. But the point is, that baggage is metaphysical superficiality. Nobody really talks about it. People usually mention superficiality as it pertains to physics, You know, oh, does that person have an attractive body? Versus, oh, does that person have an attractive mind? And so, you know, yeah, a lot of people, they get confused and they think that they're not, you know, guilty in some way of any superficiality whatsoever because they don't see, you know, what is metaphysical superficiality. They don't see it as a problem. And this is, you know, this is quite problematic because it is a problem. In all seriousness, right? It's a problem because it is it's the foundation, so to speak, of even worse prejudices. You know, if you like say, okay, you had one bad experience with a person of a, you know, name the race, and then, you know, that one bad experience, you know, got you hesitant and anxious about, you know, your next encounter with a person of name the race. Okay, so now you know, now you're anxious when you meet the next person of that race, whatever, and you go into it with that anxiety, but you know, you don't notice that hiding behind that layer of anxiety is a slither, shall we call it, of prejudice that you know, that entered into you through the first bad experience of a person uh, who is you know, that, you know, name the race, right? But anyway, my point is, enough bad experiences with people of that particular name the race, and you will have a lot more prejudice until it becomes fixed. It becomes a fixed codec through which to view all members of name that race, or name, you know, that sex or whatever, or, you know. But anyway, the point is that, you know, you're just as shallow, you know, and really you're more shallow because your superficiality can't be backed up by anything objective in a true sense, right? Anything that is receptually understood by everybody. Your superficiality can't really be organized in such a way to argue its justification. It can't. You can't justify, you know, not seeing a person of name the race who's being nice. You can't justify not seeing their clearly objectively perceived niceness or kindness. You can't justify not seeing that as kindness. If it's objectively perceived as kindness and you don't see it as kindness because of your metaphysical superficiality, you can't justify that it's not kind. It's kindness, you just don't see it because you're prejudiced uh, via metaphysical superficiality, and you know, you, in that case, you're racist. But my point is that metaphysical superficiality is a thing, and you can't justify it like you can justify physical superficiality. You know, um, I mean, there is clearly order to be recognized in physics that is objectively verifiable, and you know, so people complaining of, you know, I'm not sexy enough in your opinion, so that makes you a bad person, All right, people having those complaints are unjustified when those complaints are analyzed objectively. When those complaints, I should say, are scrutinized objectively. Because physics is, knock on wood, it's everybody can see the order in physics if, the order is pointed out. There is no order in the metaphysics because the metaphysics are not connected in perception, they are related in perception. So if you look at, a can of sardines, say, like you have a can of sardines, you look at a can of sardines in front of you and you're not blind, that's physics. You can clearly see that's a can of sardines. If somebody were to say, just within earshot, from behind your back, there's a can of sardines, and, if you were to believe that, you're not believing anything connected. You're believing something that is related, possibly. But it's not, you're not believing the physics because you're not aware of the physics in that scenario. You're only aware of the metaphysics. You're only aware of the relation. And it's only a possible relation in that scenario. But hopefully you get my point, that metaphysical superficiality is forming a whole lot of opinions on, forming a whole lot of true, false, and, good, bad, and right, wrong opinions on relations rather than connections. So physical superficiality is forming opinions on connections. So it's just basically reviewing order, and it's just confirming order. Metaphysical superficiality is not reviewing order. In fact, it's a disorder. You're looking at other people's, interaction styles. You're looking at their, their affect. You're looking at their words. You're reading their words, or you're listening to their words, and you, being metaphysically superficial, what you're doing is basically judging a book by its cover, but the cover is, it's a book jacket that doesn't exist in reality, but it's just a piece of paper in your head that you scribbled something on when you were young. That's a way of looking at it. Anyway, wanted to talk about metaphysical superficiality. Have a good day. Peace. Meow.